Hi there, and welcome to Out There Paranormal Podcast. I'm your ghost host, TJ, and on the first of each month, I come out with a new episode about paranormal that I find spooky and weird. If you don't know what the paranormal is, it's anything that cannot be explained with conventional science. For this podcast, that means any location, entity, or event with ghostly happenings is on the table. Make sure to follow the podcast on Instagram and TikTok at Out There Paranormals to see the posts we make for each episode and give us suggestions for what you'd like to hear. It's also a great way to join our Discord server. Before we jump into this episode, I need to give everyone a very big disclaimer. Due to the nature of this location, we will be discussing the topic of suicide very heavily in this episode. We at Out There have done our best to make sure that the topics covered in this episode are handled in a careful and respectful manner. That being said, I will be talking about very dark actions that are all based on fact. We do not take this topic lightly and want to make sure that help gets to where it's needed. We are providing suicide hotlines from multiple countries in the description of this episode. If you are having suicidal thoughts, please do not hesitate to call. Nobody wants to lose you. We are covering a chilling forest that twists the minds of those inside. A dark place where the veil lifts and spirits walk freely among the trees and voices can drive you mad. Today we are talking about the Aokigahara forest. Let's dive in. The Aokigahara forest, more popularly known as the Japanese suicide forest, is a 14 square mile expanse of trees at the northwestern foot of Mount Fuji, properly known in Japan as Aokigahara Jukai, roughly translating to the Sea of Trees. Around the year 864, Mount Fuji would erupt. Supposedly, the eruption would last for months, destroying all flora in the vicinity of the mountain. Lava rolled from the mountain, cooling as the air blew across it. In the end, the surrounding forest had been burned to the ground and covered in a porous volcanic rock. Miraculously, over the next 1,000 years, the earth began to rebuild over the rubble. Today, Aokigahara stands tall over the volcanic rock. This gives the forest one of its most notable quirks. For being a forest, it's rather silent. Sound has a hard time traveling through the forest due to the rock it's grown upon. The porous rock easily absorbs all sound and gives the forest an eerie feeling. Have you ever been told when hiking or camping that if the forest grows silent, to be careful, because a predator may be nearby? Imagine having that feeling the whole time you're in Aokigahara. Mount Fuji and the surrounding forests, including Aokigahara, are considered sacred places. Buddhist monks would often send themselves into the forest and up the mountain with nothing as a way of isolating themselves. On these treks, the monks would have to sustain themselves off of what they could find in nature. The end goal was to become a sokushinbutsu, or a type of Buddhist mummy. You can imagine while on these treks, many monks didn't survive. The forest was also known for ubaste, a practice where an elderly family member would be carried to a remote location and left to die. According to some, Aokigahara was one of these remote locations. Though the general belief now is that ubaste is purely folklore and myth. It wasn't until the 1960s that Aokigahara's association with suicide came to light. A book called Tower of Waves was a story about two young lovers who end the story by committing suicide in Aokigahara. Many have called this book the Japanese Romeo and Juliet, and this book is what sparked the tide of suicides within the forest. In the late 60s, more and more visitors would visit the forest with the intent of venturing inside, going far off the marked trails and ending their lives. Police, volunteers, and even journalists have helped with an annual search for bodies every year since 1970. The last recorded findings were in 2010, where 54 bodies were found. In Japanese belief, when someone passes, their soul is sent to a kind of purgatory to await proper burial rites before venturing into the afterlife. However, in situations such as murder and suicide, where the soul is ripped violently from the body, the spirit may become what is known as a yurei. This is a spirit that bridges the gap across the veil, more like your typical spirits and poltergeists. It's these spirits that are said to haunt the forest. Visitors who stay on the marked paths will be unfazed by these spirits, and may not even realize the forest is haunted, except for voices that occasionally call from somewhere deep within. These voices will target those who are depressed and lost in life and attempt to pull them away from the marked paths. True or not, this happens. Many will wander off the marked paths and not be found for some time, and by the time they are, it's too late. The Yurei seek revenge against those who hurt them, but also seek to torment those who wander onto their grounds. It's said they will use multiple forms of manipulation to do this: voices, apparitions, and hallucinations. Just like every other location we've covered so far, even Aokigahara has a woman in white. Hikers will say that they see a woman wearing a white kimono wandering the woods. Assuming she's lost, many will follow her, only to be pulled deeper and deeper into the trees, eventually becoming completely lost and disoriented. A great visualization of this is the 2016 film The Forest. It's a film about a woman who ventures into Aokigahara to find her sister and gets driven crazy by the forest. There are two main beliefs for how the forest manipulates those who get lost. The first being the growth of the forest itself. Raising itself from volcanic rock gives the forest its eerie silence. Any time of the day, the forest is quiet. The forest is also very dense. Going just a couple dozen feet from a marked path can cause you to lose sight of it, completely disorienting you. The canopy of the forest is also so thick that sometimes, in the middle of the day, the forest can look as if it's dusk or the dead of night. Lastly is the absolute isolation. The combination of all of these can give anyone an overwhelming sense of isolation, which could lead to suicidal thoughts for those who may be depressed or of a similar mindset. Secondly are the spirits. As explained previously, the Yurei of the forest want revenge against those who've wronged them. However, since they cannot leave the forest, they take their anger out on visitors and want those visitors to feel their pain. They'll use phantom voices to lure those who are vulnerable into the dense woods. Once there, they can do a variety of things. Most common is filling the lost's mind with dark thoughts, either subconsciously or overtly. They can make them see loved ones that will harass them, or other kinds of hallucinations or apparitions. These spirits will break down a person's psyche and will before convincing them to kill themselves, most commonly by hanging. The movie The Forest does a fantastic job at visualizing all of this for viewers. Now, many of these experiences are stories that we can't actually be too sure of. Most who experience these events sadly don't return to tell us. Since 2010, officials have decided not to release the number of bodies found in the forest in hopes that the forest can begin shedding its tragic status. Despite efforts, signs are still posted at every major entrance to the forest urging those with suicidal thoughts to turn back and call the hotline for help. Now, this already brings us to the modern day. Aokigahara is a beautiful nature and wildlife area. However, camping in the area has been banned. Many whose bodies were found at campsites. So it's believed that those who would willingly enter the forest to commit suicide would bring camping equipment and decide overnight if they would attempt or not. It seems now that the number of found persons is getting smaller, but we won't know for sure until officials release a report. The most recent event that put Aokigahara back on an international radar was the video Logan Paul uploaded on December 31st, 2017. The video was supposed to be a camping trip vlog of his night stay in the forest where he would try and reach out to spirits. Not but a couple hundred feet into the woods, he and his team discovered the remains of someone who had recently committed suicide, filming their corpse and posting it on YouTube. This video would send his career in a downward spiral that would take him years to recover from. As for Aokigahara, it introduced the woods to many who had never heard about it. Its popularity spiked as the news of the video spread like wildfire. It would once again become the top tourist spot in Japan, though we are unsure if this video caused more people to venture into the woods to commit suicide. Despite countless reports of voices, apparitions, orbs, and more, It's difficult to find any photos, videos, or even stories about the hauntings in Aokigahara, so I'm sorry to disappoint you all there. However, there are still some things to talk about when it comes to the forest. During the yearly body hunt, as it's been called, the bodies are retrieved and stored in a specific building for identification. While the bodies are stored in this building, there are employees whose job it is to stay with the bodies overnight. This is to keep the yurei content until the body has a proper burial. If left unattended, the spirits can grow mad and begin to act in a more poltergeist way, throwing chairs, making strange noises, opening and closing doors. One night, while keeping watch over some recently retrieved bodies, an employee experienced something frightening. He sat alone with the bodies while waiting for his co-worker to return. Time ticked away as he waited and waited, wondering if there was any weight to the superstitions. After a while, he finally heard the door open. He turned, expecting to see his partner, but he wasn't there. In the doorway stood the husk of a man, a decaying corpse. He looked at the coworker, then over at the bodies, before vanishing. The man quickly concluded that the man was the yurei of one of the bodies. He turned back and resumed his duties, shaken and horrified. Not the situation I would want to be in. This story tells us one thing. The yurei are either still attached to their bodies or don't want to leave them. Now, if that's the case, and a yurei moves on once the body is given proper burial rites, wouldn't that mean that as more bodies get discovered, retrieved, and buried, there are less yurei occupying the forest? Then why do visitors still so commonly hear voices tempting them off the paths? Demons. There is a long-standing belief that either before the influx of suicides began at the forest, or once the darkness of suicide began to seep into the land, demons appeared. Whether the demons are actually demons or tormented yurei, we can't be sure. We do know that it is most likely these entities that want to pull travelers off the path to harm themselves. In Japanese beliefs, demons or oni are hulking beings that live in caves or near mountains. Being at the base of Mount Fuji, could these creatures be the culprit, just in an ethereal form? Oni are known for their immense strength, control over certain elements, and their propensity for violence. An Oni's violence usually appears in one of two ways: murder or cannibalism. I think this makes them a good potential candidate for what really haunts the woods. Being spirits and having an ethereal form means that, at least in the forest, they can't harm us physically. Instead, they play mind games, luring vulnerable people deep into the woods, getting them lost, isolating them, then filling their mind with dark thoughts. If you are unsettled with mentions of cannibalism, skip ahead about 30 seconds. As for the cannibalism part of an Oni's violence, an even darker side of the forest comes after the suicides occur. Due to the amount of bodies that aren't found by officials, cannibals will go into the forest and search for bodies, only to consume parts of them and leave before anyone notices. Other unspeakable acts are taken on the bodies of the lost, adding to the overwhelming darkness that hides itself within the trees. Could this be an urge of the Oni, drawing them in and causing them to do such things? The darkness within the forest could be many different things. Whether you believe in the Oni, the woods swarming with yurei, or even the density and isolation of the forest driving people to suicide, something is going on in Aokigahara. This is usually the part of the episode where I'd go into some Reddit stories or other eyewitness events. But the issue with Aokigahara is that there really isn't any. I scoured multiple paranormal subreddits for stories, read through multiple articles, watched plenty of YouTube videos, and found next to nothing. Just the story you heard earlier. I couldn't even find photo, audio, or video evidence. That begs the question, is the forest even haunted? It could surely be argued either way. A big lack in evidence does hinder the forest's paranormal credibility, though suspending your disbelief does make the forest much more intriguing and beautiful in a way. A place where the purest beauty of nature harmonizes with the darkness within. There's something poetic about it. It can't be argued that Aokigahara is a mesmerizing landmark in Japan. Despite what's believed about spirits, it's a wonder that feels almost otherworldly when you enter. Otherworldly indeed. So what do you think? Are the Yurei and Oni of Aokigahara really out there? We are on Instagram and TikTok at Out There Paranormals, so be sure to follow us and give us your thoughts on the things we cover and suggestions for what you'd like to hear next. If you like what you hear, be sure to give us a 5-star review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It means a lot, and it's a great way for others to find and enjoy the podcast, just like you. 1 month from today, I will be covering a home to spirits with a grudge and the tragedy that befell them in life. It's also the most iconic Halloween location in America. We will be talking about the ghosts of Salem. See you next time. This episode was written and hosted by me, TJ, with logo designed by Jason Zykes and Josh, and theme music from purpleplanet.com.